let's start off first with the elephant in the room. Spirit was apparently in talks with Frontier Group. We know that that deal had already raised some hackles in Washington here. What would make a JetBlue Spirit tie-up go down smoother?
So thanks for having me. Yeah, I think that JetBlue is a small enough player, regional player, that it wouldn't create too many problems from an antitrust. I mean, I think the current administration is against generally, allowing industries to consolidate too much. But JetBlue is, really an East Coast airline, East Coast Caribbean airline. And I think if Spirit and Frontier is palatable, I think adding JetBlue to it wouldn't be that big of a deal, to be honest with you. Ultimately, it'd get done.
From a strategic standpoint, George, I think it's interesting. We've spoken with JetBlue before, and they continue to say that maybe they would prefer some of the venture partnerships. Correct me if I'm wrong. It might have been American Airlines out of the Northeast and those types of partnerships. What shift do you see in full outright sort of M&A?
Yeah, so to me, this is very surprising because I think the cultures of the two companies are very, very different. I think the product is very, very different. And so to me, it actually strikes me a little bit as sort of if you can't beat them, join them. So I think that there's more competition in the U.S. airline space than the airlines would like right now, and Spirit and Frontier are the ones that have really been, pushing forward, putting a lot of capacity into the marketplace, and they're putting cheap capacity, right? Their costs are lower than all the other airlines. And if you're JetBlue or even Alaska, right, those are the two companies in the partnership with American that you just commented on. You're kind of in middle ground because you have, both of those are kind of regional players, right? They're, JetBlue, again, being an East Coast Caribbean player. They're not the lowest cost provider, so they're at risk from below, from ultra-low-cost carriers like Spirit Frontier, who can deliver seat miles cheaper and therefore give the customer a cheaper ticket price. Yeah. And they're at risk from above because they have to try to have a bit of a premium product, but they can't take you everywhere in the world. So if you're a business traveler, as business travel returns, the business travelers on United, American, George, Delta, airlines take them around the world. Sorry, go ahead.
Talk to us about as the traveler returns, whether it be a vacation or whether it be a business traveler. We're, of course, looking today at some of the Caribbean, the idea of getting back on boats, going cruising is suddenly seeing a lot of demand. Are we seeing airlines getting any of that sort of goodwill, that desire, that demand coming back? And is this why we might see a little bit of animal spirits come back into these companies? Or is it more the margin headwinds, the oil prices that are going to force this sort of change?
Yeah, so we had already seen sort of that drive for, the consumer who hadn't been out for a vacation in a while coming back. And we're seeing that right now, I think, in spring break travel. But the higher fuel prices are definitely going to put a damper on things, right? The airlines have to raise fares in order to compensate for those higher fuel prices, or they'll be the bleeding financially. And so, but we still see the leisure traveler as leading the recovery, and that's where Spirit and Frontier probably do best. And if you're in a world where oil prices remain this high and the consumer pocketbook is challenged, they'll want to fly the Spirits and Frontiers because they want the cheapest price possible so they can spend the money when they get there. And that may be part of the logic of this, but it would change all of JetBlue's culture, right? Because JetBlue isn't sort of an ultra low cost culture, which is really interesting about the deal.